So good morning and welcome. Welcome to the Retired Living True series. For those who don't know us, my name is Brett Janelle and this is my wife and business partner, Annette Janelle. And this is our 11th year doing the True series.
Can you believe that? 11 years. Well, we're on our 11th year.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. And to that, we've started expanding our team to help us with this because it's a lot of work. So we enjoy doing it, and we are also going to enjoy more help. Yeah.
So today's topic is dear to our hearts. We know there's a lot of people in our community who are dealing with challenges of memory impairment, cognitive loss, and just what to do. And there's just so many facets to this topic. But for Annette and I, we help people, older adults, with real estate needs, that's what our business is, and with downsizing, because we have a move management downsizing company to help with that process. And through that, we have lots of people that come to us because they're dealing with the challenge of dementia, cognitive loss of some form, and are just trying to work out how to navigate that. So today's topic, the truth about downsizing and dementia, options, timing, and transitions, is how this topic came about.
It is not uncommon for me to meet with people that they may just be a single person and realizing that they're having cognitive challenges and planning ahead and wanting to know what resources are available. So I often meet there. And then also with couples where one of them is having more cognitive challenges than the other one, and the couple's trying to figure out and navigate the next step. And so it has come up multiple times through the years that we've done this. So I'm very excited to have such expert panelists to be able to help us navigate this together.
Yeah, because it's not a one-size-fits-all. There's not one solution. It's going to be different for everybody. It's going to be different from a couple to an individual to a spouse to an adult child trying to navigate this. So we just encourage you today just to hear the different perspectives. We have three amazing panelists who have different experiences, different perspectives, and it'll kind of help you to maybe think about what the challenges and issues are to help you then work out if you're in that situation now, or know that might be coming up, or at some future time, or for someone else that you know. So part of this is also just being well educated, just like our education partners that are in here, to be able to just help other people in the community. So anything else? No? Yeah, so with that said, I'd like to invite our panelists to come up and join me on stage. Colette, Jennifer, and Kathy. Colette, could I start with you? Could you introduce yourself to the audience, who you are, and a little bit about your background and organisation?
Yes. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for your time. I'm Colette Alano, and I have about 25 years of senior living in different facets of life, specializing in Alzheimer's dementia care. Right now, I'm currently in sales and marketing.
Thank you, Colette. Jennifer.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Jennifer Carson. I'm a clinical associate professor in the School of Public Health at UNR and the founding director of the DEAR program. DEAR is an acronym for the Dementia Engagement, Education, and Research Program, and we are the proud administrative home of Dementia Friendly Nevada. I have been a professional care partner supporting folks across the continuum of dementia care and support for about 4 decades now. I'm also a former family care partner. My dad lived well with Lewy body and vascular dementia in his own home for about 10 years after his diagnosis. And so to this conversation, I bring both my professional perspective as well as my personal experiences and a deep appreciation for the complexities that families face when making decisions about downsizing and navigating choices within the context of dementia support.
Thank you, Jennifer. Welcome. Kathy.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Kathy Maupin. I am a longtime volunteer with the Alzheimer's Association. I am a community educator, so I go throughout Northern Nevada teaching about this disease. I am a facilitator for a support group for people who have parents with Alzheimer's. I'm an advocate. I've gone to Congress and our legislature so that I advocate for legislation that will help people in this situation. And I was also a caregiver. My mother had Alzheimer's for about 25 years, and I was her caregiver for 22. So thank you for being here. We're just so glad to have you.
Thank you, Kathy. Jennifer, could I start with you? Just from your professional perspective and experience, what are some of the main key indicators that that should cause us to have a conversation regarding memory impairment?
Here's my suggestion. Don't wait for indicators, because it is never too early to ask the question, does living at home truly support this person in living the life they want and deserve? And that's true for someone living with dementia, but also for anyone whose needs are changing as they age. And of course, most people want to remain in their own homes for as long as possible. And I think that's an excellent goal, but remaining at home should never come at the cost of social isolation, of inaccessibility to one's own bathroom, unsafe conditions, or another family member's health and well-being. And so, as we all know, most forms of dementia are progressive, but each person's journey is uniquely their own. And so I'm here to tell you there is no one-size-fits-all answer to the question here. So instead of focusing on the diagnosis alone, families should ask some very practical questions. Questions like, is this person at risk of falls? Is this person at risk of getting lost? Are medications being managed effectively? Is this person becoming socially isolated or neglecting their essential needs? Is a family member or friend overwhelmed? You know, safety matters, but it's only one part of the picture. And so we also have to ask, does this person have opportunities for connection and purpose and joy? And whenever possible, these conversations should happen with the person, not simply about the person, because every person living with dementia deserves dignity, autonomy, and participation in the decisions that impact their lives. And the last thing I'll say about this is, don't wait for a crisis to happen before you start having these conversations. Proactive planning is what gives families more opportunities to make thoughtful decisions together, which preserves not just the person's autonomy, but also your relationship.
Thank you, Jennifer. So it sounds like you did touch on a number of key items, though, that we could look for when we need to start having a conversation. Kathy, did you have other factors there in terms of what would warrant us to maybe consider a change?
This is probably one of the most difficult decisions that families have to make. I think Jennifer summed it up, so beautifully. Their safety, what works best for the family, all of those things are just so important. I don't know that I could add too much more. She really did cover that. I urge people in my support group always to begin early, as she said. I really think that people should begin when they have children. They need to get things in place in case something happens to them, and they can gradually build on that as they grow into old age, so that plans are in place and their kids know exactly what they want. The other thing I would add to this is, I, for example, promised my mother I would never move her into a facility. She didn't want to go to a nursing home. And we tried to honor that decision. But I tell people in support group, oftentimes things happen, and as Jennifer said, my mother fell and fractured a hip, which meant she had to leave to go to a hospital for 3 days, and then she had to then transition into rehab in another hospital-like situation. So she was having 3 living situations within the space of about 4 days. So I tried very hard to honor her decision, but because of her fall and her fractured hip, I could not continue to honor that. So even though you try to do the best you can, oftentimes the promises that you make can't be kept.
Thank you, Kathy. So what would you suggest in the situation, because Annette and I encounter it a lot, where it's a couple that are dealing with this. They're trying to work out, do we stay where we are, and at what point is it no longer appropriate? What are some of the factors there that a couple might be looking at, trying to decide whether our current home is perfect for us or whether we do need to at some point consider a change, and then what might some of those factors be that would warrant a change? Is it similar to what Jennifer said, or is it different for a couple versus for an adult parent?
I think there are differences, particularly when it's a spousal couple. If the spouse is willing to move with a loved one. I was telling Brett that I had a woman in my group whose husband was older and had Alzheimer's. They sold their house. They got a little apartment in senior living. And unfortunately, he passed away 6 months later. And then she was left in a 700 square foot apartment, wishing she weren't there and wishing she hadn't sold her house. So I think spouses have to be very careful when they're making these decisions with each other, with regard to someone having perhaps Alzheimer's and the spouse wishing to remain with them. But there are other solutions, keeping the house for a while to make sure that that works, and going into, say, senior living. If the loved one is more and more difficult to handle, perhaps with violence issues, then maybe the spouse would not want to go, but would rather have a loved one in a care facility where behaviors can be managed and they can go back to being a spouse instead of a caregiver. Or if it's a parent, they can be the child again rather than being a caregiver. So again, as Brett was saying, this is it's unique to each family, each individual and what they want to do. I have people in my group who literally their parents have long-term care and insurance, and they say, my parent made the decision a long time ago to go into care, and we're honoring that decision. So it's knowing what your loved ones want and what the dynamics of the situation are.
So in that situation, they probably should have thought one step further forward. If my spouse does pass from dementia, am I going to stay where we are now together or somewhere else? And would it be the 4,000 square foot home? Would I go back to that, or do I need another option?
Yeah, it's really important to discuss these things, and I like I say, I think when you have kids, this is when you start. As you grow older, you can have plans in place, and I think that that's really important to do, so that there is guidance on where you're going to go. And there are a lot of different situations where people can move and still be together or go and visit. It's a tragedy in so many ways. It's so difficult to make a decision like this. In our case, we had tons of plans in place, and they all went down the drain with my mom's fall. So, yeah.
There's only so much we can do, isn't there?
Yes.
Yeah. Colette, did you have something you wanted to add?
I did want to add it. I often see people come to me and they talk about the person with the diagnosis or the person with the health crisis. I take a moment and I look at the person, that's the spouse. Are you being supported? Do you have a team around you? You're just as important in these decisions as the person living with the crisis or the diagnosis. So I always say, when you're making plans and discussions, we need to also look at you and let's take a moment. What are your needs? How can we meet that? What are the resources for you so that you feel supported? And yeah, so I always kind of look at all the scenarios. the kids, the family dynamics, because that's really important too. Not everyone is going to land on the same page, but we need to have those open discussions.
Yes, Jennifer?
I just love, we're all three on the same page with the importance of proactive planning, as I think you can hear, and that everybody's needs are important in this equation. And like Kathy, with my experience, it's important to note that advanced planning doesn't necessarily mean that everything's going to go according to the plan. Wouldn't that be great if that's what happened? But what advanced planning as a family does is it can ensure that the person living with dementia's values and preferences continue to guide decisions as their needs change. And that's really important.
Yeah, thank you. So, Colette, I know a lot of people we talk to are struggling whether they move, if they've decided we are going to have to move at some point, do we do it sooner or later? Do we wait till we're like crisis and we really have to do it? Did you have any thoughts as to the pros and cons of sooner versus later?
For me, I can move as quickly as your physician fills out my packet, I always say. So I can move in a crisis, a hospital stay, a skilled nursing stay. It's never ideal. We have to consider that, hey, maybe I had that big fall. I'm in a health crisis. I'm in transition anyways. Do I really want to make a big move at that point and make the decision of where I'm going? No. We want to be proactive if we can. So making the choice of going, these are my options, these are the choice here, and having the plans A through Z, right? Because life changes, circumstances changes. Most people want to live in their home, and that's not always going to be feasible. Financial, right? There's financial too. Everybody knows how much 24/7 care is, $30,000 to $40,000 a month. Raise your hands if you have that in your back pocket, right? Well, good for you. I'm meeting you after. Right? I need some financial advisement from this lady. But those are some of the scenarios that, hey, my plan A is ideal, but life took me here. And what happens when I'm here? I would love for people to come and sit across from me and say, this is what my loved one wanted, this is the option that they chose, and I'm here to support that. That's always ideal. Now, if it's a crisis and someone's sitting across from me and they're trying to make the choice for their loved one, it's always more difficult because you get the guilt, you get the worry, am I making the right decision? I tell families, there's no right decision, there's no wrong decision. Give yourself grace in that because you're doing the best you can in the situation you are. So proactive as much as possible, but when you have to react, know your resources and pull them in. There's lovely people in this community and there's tons of resources, and we hope to be providing you some of that today.
Thank you. So I'd like to try and contrast that with you, Kathy, because Colette, you represent a memory care community, so you do see more crisis or when cognitive decline is further advanced than perhaps you see, Kathy, maybe in support groups where people are maybe there earlier. What do you see in terms of the challenges of moving sooner if a move is decided versus waiting till later? Does it matter? Is there...
Well, again, it will probably depend upon the individual. There are advantages to moving people early. If they're not that far advanced with their Alzheimer's, they may be easier to transition to a different situation. If they are farther advanced, it may be a little more difficult. A lot of times people in my group say, oh my gosh, we moved mom and she fell off the cliff, which means her Alzheimer's worsened. They're in an unfamiliar situation. So if you move them earlier, they do have a chance, more of a chance to adapt. Everything is going to be unfamiliar. At their home, they know where the bathroom is, they know where food is, they know the neighbors, they know their backyard. All of a sudden, now they're in a situation where they don't know anyone. They don't know where to go to get food. They don't understand anything. So in some ways, moving them earlier is better. But there are problems with that as well, especially if they start saying they don't want to be there and they want to go home. It can affect their emotional state, and again, their Alzheimer's can grow worse. One of the reasons, if I could just backtrack a little bit to, yes. I tell people when they first come into support group, I wish they would go look at long-term care facilities, just so that they know what is out there. You hope you never need them, but in a crisis, you will have that listed in a notebook and maybe have the top 3 that you have picked out that might be appropriate for your loved one. And sometimes they're already full, so you have to go maybe to number 2 or number 3 on your list. But I think it's really, really important. People laugh at me and go, oh, my mom's not that bad, my dad's not that bad. Well, a crisis can happen, or their Alzheimer's progresses. So I think it's really important for you, as part of your planning, to go look at long-term care facilities, rank them, write about them, and hopefully you never need it.
Just before you do, so could you just tell us, Kathy, what are the options? So being in my home, you can encourage people as far as advanced planning to look at long-term care communities, memory care communities. Are there other options here in our local community other than those 2?
Yes, there are lots of options in our community. There's senior living, as that woman and her husband did. There's assisted living if they need help with showering, taking medications. There are group homes. These are people who will take 4 or 5 or maybe 6 people with Alzheimer's into their home and give them a very home-like situation. So those are group homes. There's memory care. There are memory care units throughout our area where they're specifically geared to taking care of people who have Alzheimer's. And then in the case of my mother, she ended up having to go to a long-term care facility that had rehabilitation. So yes, there are all kinds of situations that people can go into. And of course, relatives can move in with their loved ones, or they can take their loved ones and have them move into their home as well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So all of those apply to an individual.
Right.
What about a couple? Annette and I, one of us has memory impaired, and we're going to make a move. Can we both move into each of those that you described? Obviously, we can stay in our current home, but do they all apply? A group home, a senior living, a memory community?
Senior living, yes, you can go together. Assisted living, probably. I'm not sure someone would really want to move into a memory care unit if they were doing fine. I'm not sure how that would be approached, but it could be asked.
I can definitely speak on that one. So I see a lot of couples come in. One, like I said, memory support, possibly needing that transition piece. I would never put a partner or their spouse in a memory care community. Their health is going to decline a lot faster than the person with the diagnosis. There's programming, routine, structure, everything science-based programming in a proper memory care community. Your needs as the spouse is not going to be met there. So finding a community that you can transition to together, for instance, assisted living or independent, one being independent, one needing some assistance, and having that transitional piece so it's more of a one and done move. We transition together as your health changes is always better than doing the 3 or 4 different transitions. Transitions, we know, can lead to further decline. So trying to think about that, how many different changes are you going to face? But no, I wouldn't recommend putting anybody in a memory care community when you don't need it. We just don't do that.
Thank you. Jennifer.
I want to add a little bit of data to this conversation about options, and there are many, and that is good. There's no one size fits all, like I was mentioning. But it's important to note that many people living with dementia continue to live well in their own homes for years with the right supports in place. And if we look demographically across the nation, what we know is that most people living with dementia will continue to remain in their own homes or in the homes of a loved one and not move into congregate residential settings. Some of that is due to costs, right? Which is a challenge for a lot of people. But what I think is really important to underscore here for everyone is something about our rights. Every person has the right, the legal right, to receive care and support in the least restrictive environment. And that is a right protected by the Americans with Disabilities Act, and that is a right that was further upheld by the U.S. Supreme Court Olmstead versus LC decision. And it's really important because people need to be aware of their rights to receive care and support in whatever constitutes the least restrictive environment. And so, in other words, thoughtful assessment is a part of the decision-making equation. Just because a person is living with a dementia-related diagnosis does not necessarily mean that they need to immediately move into a congregate care setting. And again, statistically speaking, across the country, that's not the reality for most people who are living with dementia in our country. They continue to remain in private homes in the community. But whether a family chooses to stay at home or to move, again, going back to this idea of planning early is so important. I love this idea. Go get familiar with the lay of the land and all of the different options. Planning early does not mean moving early, right? Planning early means becoming educated so that you and your families can plan what works best for you given your unique circumstances.
Thank you, Jennifer. Really well said. So maybe Colette, I know a lot of spouses and adult children really struggle with that decision when a move is decided or they believe it's needed. How do we help people with like the guilt, knowing, okay, the current environment's just not working for whatever reason, I can't support my spouse as a caregiver anymore, we need to do something. How do we help people with like guilt around needing to do something?
Good question. I've walked that walk with my own father. So deciding is never easy. And I always go back to saying, build your team early, having those resources in your back pocket so that you feel supported when or if you have to be in that position where you're guiding the decision-making process. So support. We're going to talk about that at the end of where you guys can pull that information from. But I always say, build your team early. There's no right decision. You're really just trying to do the best for your loved one. So give yourself grace in that. I was not so kind to myself during that process. And so I can say I didn't have the resources until I knew about the resources. So educating yourself on that is really, really important, and saying, hey, time out, I need some support, and that's okay. As a care person, you need to say my needs are equally as important. And when I'm walking through that as a family member, I know my loved one better than anybody else, and I'm going to support them. So when I do have to make the hard choices, and it's going to be hard, change is not easy for anybody. So it's going to be difficult. Make sure you have a team around you and you're supported, especially if you're in that transition period as a spouse. You're going to be mourning the loss of your spouse with you in your home if you decide to do that transition. So know your resources, build your team, give yourself grace. There's no right decision. There's just doing the best you can.
Thank you, Colette. Jennifer, do you have anything different you'd like to add? Then
Yeah.
I'll ask you, Kathy.
I think that guilt often comes from believing that we've made a decision for a person that they never would have chosen for themselves, right? That's the source of guilt. Or when we are planning a decision for someone and we know that that is probably not what they would choose for themselves. So this is why I work very hard with families to avoid putting themselves in a position where they feel that sense of guilt. And so instead of making decisions for a person living with dementia, at the DEAR program, we encourage and teach family members to make decisions with the person, and the earlier the better. And so instead of saying to yourselves, gosh, how am I going to break the news to mom that she's moving, I would encourage families to ask a different question. Hey, mom, how can we best support you as your needs change? We really need to make a plan together here, and that plan should really honor your preferences to the greatest extent possible. But hey, mom, I also have needs that we need to take into account here. This is a different conversation. For me, I just want to say that love wasn't about protecting my dad's safety. It was part of it. But it was also about honoring my dad's personhood, his preferences, and his human rights. And I believe that I worked as hard as I possibly could to honor my dad's wishes to the greatest extent possible. And similar to Kathy's situation, at a certain point, honoring those wishes were simply not possible. But I didn't carry a sense of guilt because I know I did my best in supporting my dad's wishes, and I acted with compassion and respect. It didn't alleviate all of the guilt, but it really helped me and my brother know with confidence that we were acting as agents on our dad's behalf.
Thank you, Jennifer. I think that's really helpful. We do the best that we possibly can. There'll be a point where maybe that changes. Kathy, did you have anything you'd like to add to that that's different?
In 21 years of support group, I can tell you every single person in my support group has expressed their guilt. I think it's just almost a universal feeling when you're dealing with this disease. People feel guilty. They want to do the very best for their father or their mother or a spouse. They're tired. Mostly they're exhausted. They're trying so desperately to keep their loved one home. That's probably why they come to support group, so that we can tell them how much we love them and how much they're doing for their loved one. Guilt is just, I think, a part of this disease, and I wish it weren't, but that's why we have support groups.
Thank you. So while I have you, Kathy, so like respite care, support groups, caregiver support, they're often underutilized. Can you just explain what each of those are? And maybe you can help too, Jennifer, and just how they can help us. We've mentioned support group, but what really is that? And what is respite care and what is adult daycare?
So my support group, again, is for people who have parents with Alzheimer's. Been doing this for 21 years, and I absolutely love the people who come through my door. They are the most selfless, kind, caring, and loving people I have ever known. We as a group are there to support each other. People have emotional needs. Their guilt, many are just drowning in sorrow, so we offer emotional support. We also offer education, so I make sure that people have a handout every time they come on the latest in research or something about caregiving. I make sure that they know about books and pamphlets, educational opportunities, going to seminars, going to conferences, so that they are well educated on what the resources are in our community. I think we also offer people a place to grieve. My group is notoriously known for its laughter. We laugh all the time. I could not get them out yesterday. We were there for 3 hours. We're only supposed to meet for an hour and a half. And when I walked out, they were all still in the parking lot talking with each other. So they have emotional support. They have friendships, education. They get tips. People can walk in and say, I can't find a neurologist, and 5 people will raise their hands and say, I've got a neurologist for you. Or I don't know what to do about this particular behavior that my mother is exhibiting. And people will start laughing and go, I can help you with that, I know. So they're getting a lot of education, a lot of tips. The Alzheimer's Association has a respite grant. So people who feel like they can't come to support group because they can't leave their loved one can actually be paid with this respite grant so that they get a break from caregiving and can come and sit and laugh and love with our group. So see us out there at the table and we'll tell you about the respite grant.
So just before we do, Jennifer, so you mentioned it was for adults supporting a parent with cognitive impairment. Are there support groups for couples where I'm helping my spouse and I need respite myself, or I need to learn or support or grief?
So I have the adult children group, so ours is pretty much exclusively for people who have parents with Alzheimer's, but I do get crossovers because sometimes spouses like to come to our group. There is a spousal group that is unique to just spouses. I'm not aware of any kids being in that group, but there is a spousal group. There are also general groups so that whatever you are doing as a caregiver, whether it's an aunt, a spouse, or a parent, or some other loved one, a brother, sister, there are general groups that you can attend. So see us at the table. There are all kinds of groups. We have groups in the outlying areas as well as others in Reno, just besides the ones that are at the office.
Thank you. So Jennifer, could you touch on other support groups outside of the Alzheimer's Association, and also just talk a little bit about adult daycare, where that fits in, and then just respite care as well?
So yeah, I think there's one adult day program here in Washoe County. There used to be more. I think funding mechanisms have been challenging. And for some folks, they might choose that's a great way to stay engaged, maybe to build a network of peer support. I wish that any adult day program would change their name.
What is it exactly? What does adult day program mean?
An adult day program is a place where people can go for some structured activity that has professionals working there to provide support during the day. I hate when healthcare or even community-based programs infantilize people living with dementia. These are adults. I wish that we would stop calling it a daycare, for crying out loud. And we wonder why people are reluctant to go. How many of you want to go to daycare?
No.
Right?
That was a long time ago when I was a kid.
Ridiculous. It is ridiculous.
Is there snacks?
Yeah, are there snacks? We roll out our mats and take it. Anyways,
I'm up for a nap, though.
Why not call it an academy for continued learning and growing? Why not call it an academy for living well?
Yeah, awesome.
Come on. This paternalism has to stop. It perpetuates the stigma of dementia, and it is a barrier for people getting the help they need. And so, yes, we have an adult day program in Washoe County. And it's, it could be really helpful. We also have volunteer companion programs. I know the Sanford Center for Aging offers volunteer companions who will come to your home. Nevada Rural RSVP program, SOS, Seniors and Services. So there's a number of community-based agencies that will kind of send some additional support into an individual's home. And this kind of support should not be a last resort, right? It's actually one of the best ways that we can help support people in continuing to live well and keep them out of more restrictive environments. And so what I want to briefly mention, though, it's great, different programs for family care partners. Those are incredible. The DEAR program, by the way, provides a free 12-hour care partner training for family and professional care partners. But I want to talk about programs for people who are living with dementia because they need support as well. They need opportunities to connect with the community and with each other and to build friendships and to play an active role in their own lives. And so through the UNR DEAR program, we offer several free resources that are designed with these goals in mind. For example, our Dementia Self-Management Guidebook and Program help people living with dementia develop practical strategies for living well with dementia. Our weekly Dementia Conversations group, which is on Zoom, brings people living with dementia and family care partners and professionals, researchers, and students all together in a shared conversation about living well with dementia. We call it not a support group, but supportive education. And through dementia-friendly Washoe County, which I hope you will all get engaged in. You do not have to have a dementia-related diagnosis or even be a care partner to play an active role in making our community more dementia-friendly and inclusive. And dementia-friendly Washoe County, which is fueled by aging services organizations and volunteers, offers programs for free, like the monthly Open Door Cafe, free music and food. It's a blast. Build community with each other. It's a dementia inclusive event. Walk with me in partnership with the city. We walk through Idlewild Park. It's another dementia inclusive program. Dance with me in partnership with Ballroom of Reno is a dementia friendly ballroom dance class. I mean, these are incredible opportunities that are freely available in our community to help keep people living with dementia connected and included, and to build community. And so please stop by and see my friend and colleague Bradlyn Weissert back here, who's my colleague from the DEAR program, or me, so that we can share with you some of these opportunities that are currently woefully underutilized. So we're hoping that you can help us spread the word.
Thank you, Jennifer. So we have a speaker table outside at the end, and you have a lot of materials that you both have brought along to share. So yeah, we'd encourage you to stop by, and because that was a lot of information. That was a lot of information. But we obviously have But the great thing is we obviously have a lot of great resources here in our community. Yeah, between both of what you had said. So can I jump to you, Colette? We talked about advanced planning, preparing early, kind of knowing what our options are. Can we talk about the importance of having a power of attorney in place and why that's important sooner rather than later? And actually, can I just poll the audience? Only put your hand up if you feel comfortable, but who has a durable power of attorney? Good job. Good job. But there are some who don't. So for those who don't, why is it so important, whether it's related to this topic or not? Why do we need one? Maybe I'll start with you.
Well, I can talk on professional and with my dad. My dad did not plan anything. So here we are in a medical crisis, and I'm called to make end-of-life choices with nothing in place. And so having to go through the legal process in the middle of timing issues was, I can tell you, not fun. So I always say, we all know end of life will happen. That's the guarantee. So knowing who you want to support your wishes or your financial, so there's a couple different power of attorney paperwork and process. So one financial, one health. Some families decide this child of mine would be better with finance and this one's going to be better with the health choices. And then guess what? They don't always fall in the same page of what mom or dad would want. So be considerate that you're making maybe some relationship strife later down the road when they're trying to make the best decision when they both think that they're making the best decision. So having your power of attorney paperwork is super, super important, and then updating it as things change if you need to. You can always change it. If I have somebody that comes and sits across from me and they do not have paperwork in place, but we are having to make those crisis decisions, I need them to do that first. So then I have to pull resources to have someone sit with them, get that paperwork, and then we proceed for the best safety and well-being of their loved one. You never want to be in that place, so think about it, but then also talk to somebody that is educated in all of the different scenarios. Like I mentioned, family dynamics will happen. If you're on your own and you don't have a family built in, this is something that you can also speak about resources, and I know Jennifer can speak about that as well, but there's guardianship. It's not easy step of, hey, I'm going to do this and I need a guardian, but there are steps in place. So just finding a really, really good person to trust as far as attorneys go, that's great. And then just navigating that. If I don't have kids and I don't have a spouse and I'm on my own, have that paperwork still in place, because there are people that can support you and your wishes and your needs. So there's guardianship, there's power of attorney paperwork, and those things are really important to consider as you're navigating things. You do not have to have guardianship when you have power of attorney set up for yourself. It is an option if you need it, and there's lots of complications. We could sit all day and just talk about when you bring in a guardian, but just know that those are the options for you guys, and it is legal, binding paperwork that are required to make certain decisions for yourself or the well-being of your loved one.
Thank you. Just one sec, Jennifer. Just everyone who put their hand up saying they have a durable power of attorney, whether it's finance, real estate, health, can you put your hands up again, and then keep your hand up if you've looked at your health one in the last 5 years, if you reviewed it. If you haven't reviewed it, put your hand down. I see a lot of hands go down. So over to you, Jennifer. Why is it important as part of our planning to be reviewing what our wishes are?
Yeah, my dad changed his wishes multiple times as circumstances in his life changed, right? So it's important to review and update your form so that your wishes can always be honored.
Is it possible for these people that what they chose 10 years ago maybe doesn't quite make sense now?
Hey, by the way, you can fire your durable power of attorney. So, I mean, they're there to serve you, right? And so this is how the law works. So yeah, these forms are available for you to revise as necessary. And I want to just add to the helpful suggestions that Colette made. Having, in addition to your durable power of attorney for health and finance, everyone should have advanced directives for healthcare, right? Everybody should have that. And in addition...
Is there a difference between the two?
Yeah, so your healthcare, your advanced directives is where you get to really express your wishes for your future care. Your healthcare power of attorney will then hopefully act to carry out those wishes should you become incapacitated in expressing them for yourself. So it's really important to get your advanced directives for healthcare. In addition, how many of you have a POLST? All right, here we go, everyone. Call to action. I think everyone should have a POLST. POLST stands for Physician or Provider Order for Life-Sustaining Treatment. This is about whether or not you want CPR or not. What kind of life-saving treatment do you wish to have? You know, should you have a healthcare emergency? This is something you complete with your physician. My dad kept his POLST form on the refrigerator with the magnet. So that, right? How many of you do that? That's so smart. Do that. That way, if we ever had to call the paramedics, and they're trained to go look on your refrigerator to see if you got a POLST form attached to it, they'll grab that POLST form, and then they are able to follow your treatment decisions. It is a medical order to emergency responders that says you are expected to follow this order without having to review the entire healthcare directive. If you don't have a POLST form, I really encourage you to get one. But in addition, in Nevada, I also want to put on everyone's radar the concept of supported decision making. I love this concept. It is complementary with the durable power of attorney. But in Nevada, supported decision making recognizes a person's ability to work with a trusted loved one to understand information, to weigh their options, to communicate their preferences, and to remain actively involved in all of the decisions that impact their lives to the greatest extent possible. So supported decision-making helps a person make their own decisions. A power of attorney is wonderful, and they should be fulfilling your wishes, but know that that power of attorney now has the authority to make some decisions on your behalf, right, when authorized to do so. And so I think they're complementary, And just final note, if I have just 1 minute about capacity, because this question comes up a lot. What if my parent or loved one doesn't have the capacity to make these decisions, right? Dementia-related diagnosis does not automatically mean that a person lacks capacity for decision-making. Okay, capacity is something that is a clinical judgment and should be assessed by a trained provider, right? And it's domain specific. So a person might lack capacity in one domain of life, but still have the capacity for decisions in another. Now, as loved ones, we can kind of assess generally a person's capacity, right? But legally speaking, and I'm just talking about the law, that capacity is determined by trained providers who assess capacity. And so the question isn't really, can this person make a decision? The question is, what decisions can this person still make, and what support do they need in order to make them? Just because a person needs support does not mean that they lack the legal capacity to make their own decisions.
Thank you, Jennifer. So I just want to touch back on one thing you mentioned, PULSed. I noticed a number of people didn't know what PULSed was. Would there be an interest in learning more about that? Yes. So the good news is, I don't know how this happened, but Comprehensive Home Health Solutions, where are you guys in the room? Yeah, in the back corner there, kindly offered to do a workshop on August the 27th on PULSed, completing the PULSed form. So at our next seminar, which is August the 20th, we'll have sign-ups for that workshop if you would like to come along and better understand the process and the decisions that go into it. Whether or not you want to have a PULSed form or not, I would just encourage you, as Jennifer did, to come along and just understand it better and how it's important, and it's important to understand what it is you are deciding with the help of your physician. So yeah, thank you so much, Comprehensive Home Health, for being willing to do that. Sorry, you had something else you wanted to add, Jennifer? Nope. Okay. You sure? Colette, Kathy, did you have anything else you wanted to add on as far as Durapower? Well, let me just ask, what is the downside for those who are not aware of not having one? I get to the point where I can no longer make decisions for myself, and my physician agrees Brett's no longer able to make decisions, and I never completed a healthcare directive, durable power of attorney. What happens now to Brett, who's just not with it anymore? Yeah.
And so, so usually what would happen is the capacity would be assessed by a qualified provider. It's a clinical judgment. That clinical judgment would then go to a court, and a judge would make a legal determination about whether or not this person is has competency. So capacity is a clinical judgment. Competency is a legal judgment. And if a person is deemed to not be competent, then the court will assign a guardian as a substitute decision maker. But please note that even court-appointed guardians are tasked with honoring the preferences and the values of the individual that they're there to guide or guard, if you will. And so it's not that the person ever loses their voice. An individual should never lose their voice in decision making. And a good court-appointed guardian will make sure that they are working to support that individual's preferences, again, to the greatest extent possible.
And how long does this process take?
I don't know the answer to that question.
Is it quick or slow?
Anybody else know? It's
Slow.
It's very,
Hearing
very slow. Anytime you have government coming in, we all know it's a process. So you never want to be in that place. So get your documents.
Second. Yeah. So even though I've told Annette my wishes, I've been deemed incompetent, but I never completed a power of attorney or made my wishes known other than verbally to Annette. Annette can't act for me. It's now going to a guardianship, and it might be totally different to what I had expressed.
It shouldn't be. It shouldn't be. A guardian should work to support an individual's values and preferences. They should, But like Kathy was saying, even as families work to support an individual's preferences, a lot of times there are just practical realities. And in my 40-year career of supporting people living with dementia, I just want to let you all know I have deep concerns about the gaps in our system. Deep concerns, which is why it's so important to be proactive and make sure that you're educating yourselves about what options are available, getting those legal documents in order, not waiting, because when people act from a place of crisis, the worst options are usually what are provided to you. The worst options, the leftovers, are often what's left. Who can help you in this crisis? It's not usually the best options.
Well, a guardian is also limited, right? So financial restrictions, right? We're going to base decisions on financial. Then I may not know much about you as an individual or your needs. So then I'm going to go, well, I think this may be a great option, financially speaking, and that they're looking at a different side of things, not knowing you as an individual. So, and then think about it, we don't have a lot of guardians in our back pocket, right? So you're going to be a long list with one guardian. So as much as we want to provide and a guardian is here to advocate for you, they're limited, they're humans. So do your best to have that person, even if it's you don't have kids, you don't have family, find somebody or get guardianship sooner than later. Documents will save you any day of the week, and it makes things so much better for you and for everyone trying to help you.
Thank you. So, Kathy, for individuals or families who may know that either they're currently struggling with this topic or know they may in the future, what is one place you would steer people to as a starting point? If I could only make one phone call or reach out to one place that could then connect me with whatever else I might need, where would I start from your perspective?
Well, since I'm a volunteer at the Alzheimer's Association, of course, I'm going to say the Alzheimer's Association. They have just an incredible amount of resources available to people. It was where I first turned, 21 years ago, to find out what my mother had, to find out resources for physicians and neurologists. There's a helpline that is open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You can call and ask them anything. They're trained, they can help you. In terms of finding resources, there's a website, alz.org/CRF, which stands for Community Resource Finder, and pages of resources are available. There are support groups, there are individual care consults. Pretty much anything you need if you have to deal with someone who has Alzheimer's, you can find answers at the Alzheimer's Association, both nationally and, of course, here in our community.
Thank you, Kathy. And if you look at your handout on the second page, my slides aren't working for some reason, we have these resources listed down. So you'll see the Alzheimer's Association, the 800 number, and the local number. Jennifer, where would you direct people? If it's not the Alzheimer's Association, what's another option?
Yeah, one resource everyone needs to know about, whether you are supporting a person living with dementia or looking for support for yourself, you need to know about our local Nevada Care Connection resource centers, right? And in Washoe County, our resource center is called Access to Healthcare Network. And this is part of Nevada's No Wrong Door system, which means we all have one place that we can go when we're trying to understand long-term supports and services and not have to navigate this very complex system alone. They provide free resource navigation to individuals and families, and they will help you compare options, help you connect with community resources, understand what resources are even available, and they will help you develop a plan. And having that third party as a part of these discussions can sometimes be incredibly helpful for families. but I'm super excited to let you all know that the Nevada Aging and Disability Services Division is currently piloting a position called the Dementia Support Specialist here in Washoe County, an individual who has been specially trained to help families and individuals navigate the array of dementia-related resources in Washoe County and in the state of Nevada. This is a pilot program. The pilot does end in October, but know that we as voters can use our voices to advocate that the state of Nevada provide some public funding for this very needed position, just like they have in the state of Wisconsin, where every single county, and they have more than 50 counties in Wisconsin, every single county has a full-time dementia support specialist who freely helps families and individuals navigate decisions. Now, we've had 2 bills to bring this position to Nevada, and both times those bills have had unanimous support, but they die in Ways and Means in the fiscal committee. And I'm really hoping that 3rd time's a charm and that it's not 3 strikes, we're out. But that position is available, it's free. Please contact Access to Healthcare Network. They are Washoe County's Nevada Care Connection Resource Center.
And you have more information outside?
Yeah.
Fantastic.
We sure do. In fact, we have a whole list of resources Bradlin put together that's comprehensive of all of the freely available resources offered across Washoe County by a variety of different nonprofit and state agencies.
Fantastic. Thank you, Jennifer. So if you have a question, please raise your hand. One over here.
Hi, are group homes state regulated? Yes.
Yes, they are. And any group home that you go and you want to experience or tour, they have to also post their grade, okay, what they scored in their state inspection. So I helped oversee a family group home. We had 3. We specialize in dementia, Alzheimer's. We are still upheld to all of the same laws as a larger community. Just looks a little bit different, but you do have to post your grade on the wall. So look on the wall.
Thank you, Colette.
Actually, I'm sorry, I have 2 questions. The first question I have about your workshops at your home office. Do you record those?
No, unfortunately, our workshops are not recorded. The seminars are, but not the workshops.
Seminars are recorded, not the workshops. Okay. My question has to do with my partner and I have been together for 9 years. We have not married. Neither one of us has children. Neither one of us has family here. We have done our documents. The only thing we do not have is posts. But I am concerned, even though we have these documents, because we are not married, whether legally one or the other or both of us are in jeopardy of not having our wishes followed because of that. Is that any problem?
I don't know if any of us are qualified to answer that. Sounds like an attorney question, but please.
I have not experienced a durable power of attorney not being upheld, but I would also suggest a HIPAA authorization form, which is a pretty simple form you can complete with your healthcare provider that ensures that your partner can have direct conversations with your healthcare providers as necessary. And so that's really helpful to ensure that in addition to all the great stuff you've already done, that you also have a HIPAA authorization and getting familiar with each other's providers so that they understand that you each have each other's durable powers of attorney and healthcare directives.
Thank you.
And then if I could add something. So there are businesses, I refer a lot to Dignified Aging Strategies, which is case manager. He does a lot of clinical things as well, but he can also be that in between to make sure that all of your, wishes are being held, but he's kind of that in between. So the two sides, right, if there's family or whoever your power of attorney, that they're not butting heads on each other's wishes. He's the in between. So I've used him on multiple complicated situations like that where I run into issues, where families are kind of butting heads a little bit. I pull him in and, hey, if he works for you, great, but that's a resource that I would definitely look into and just have that in your back pocket. So just know that there's other resources and teams that you can build that can be helpful.
Thank you, Colette. One up the back, and yes, Carol?
Hi. I would like to know how you handle a dementia patient from driving, and what if they are resistant?
Resistant to giving up their license? Is that what you meant?
Your physician, so if a family member is concerned, you can always reach out to the physician. The physician can then do an order to do a driving test, right? And if they fail that test, you're not the bad guy, it's the physician. So
I totally agree. I think having an objective assessment is important, and it helps families avoid a lot of unnecessary drama. There will probably still be drama, but not as much as I've heard of when families take it upon themselves to determine a person's ability to drive. With my own father, we actually didn't have to get a third party involved. He was a retired police officer and very concerned about the public good. And so we asked our dad after his diagnosis if he would allow my brother, who is also a police officer, to do a monthly driving test to be able to really assess his ability to drive. And my dad, of course, caring about other people, agreed. And I think a lot of people living with dementia would agree to such an agreement. And so my brother did ride-alongs with my dad monthly. And my dad ended up quitting driving, not because he lacked the ability to drive, but this is something interesting, is because he was in a car accident, no fault of his. The axle broke off of his truck and he hit another truck, had nothing to do with dementia. But my dad's ability to cope with the stress of the accident was not good. It really overwhelmed my dad's cognitive system. And it made him feel very uncomfortable, not about his ability to drive, but about his ability to deal with unexpected situations that could come up. And so it's not always just about a person's ability to drive, I guess is my point there. But again, it was so great. My dad surrendered his license on his own. And that's usually what we're trying to go for. And so what can we do as care partners to help have those conversations with people so that they feel involved and don't feel like their rights are being stripped away from them? Losing one's ability to drive, that's a lifeline for a lot of people. And so it's not something to kind of be willy-nilly about. So I like the idea of an objective driving assessment.
Thank you, Jennifer. Kathy, you have something to add?
May I add just one more thing? This comes up a lot in support group. Please, if your loved one has been diagnosed with Alzheimer's or you suspect that they have it, you need to talk to the insurance agent, because often car insurance agencies do not provide insurance for people who have Alzheimer's. So you don't want a loved one out there driving, getting in an accident, and then the insurance company saying, well, you never told us your loved one has Alzheimer's, we're not paying. So make sure that you talk with an insurance agent if your loved one is diagnosed.
Wow, that was worth the price of admission, because I did not even know that. Wasn't even aware. Hadn't even thought of that. Thank you, Kathy, for sharing that. Yeah.
I don't think I heard correctly, so I'd like to make sure I understand what you said. What is the monthly cost of 24/7 care?
Depending on the agency or the care that you bring in, I see people come through my door paying $30,000 to $40,000 a month.
I was afraid you'd say that.
It was based on, $30 an hour for care, 12-hour shifts. I mean, it can look different for everybody, but yeah, it is definitely something to look into. It's not getting any less expensive. So community living versus in-home 24-hour care, financially speaking, you're going to go in one direction or the other. What I will say is don't be afraid of community living. There is a reason that they exist. You just need to know your options and what's appropriate for you in your care, clinical care, non-clinical care. So just do your research, get out there. You have choices, lots of choices. Narrow it down though. Don't go to 4 in one day.
I want to add, and I think it depends on where you live, how competitive the market is. For my family, my dad lived in a rural community, and toward the end of his journey living with advanced dementia, my family was paying between $12,000 to $15,000 a month out of pocket. Now, my dad was a police officer. It's not like we had that sitting in a bank account. So my family had to get really creative. We did not income qualify for state assistance through Medicaid. Like a lot of families, we were just an inch above the qualifying, financial range for Medicaid. So when my dad said, well, I want to stay at home, we had to get creative. We ended up selling my dad's only asset, his house. We took all of the money from the sale of his house and put it into a bank account that my dad then used to be able to provide higher in-home care and support. The person who bought my dad's house was my brother. And he got the care partner discount. But this kind of creativity is what is required when people want to be able to live and age at home. It takes a lot of creativity, a lot of flexibility, and again, conversations that have to happen sometimes years before the needs develop, because selling a home, buying a home, that all takes time. You can't do that if you're working from a place of crisis.
Thank you. And costs money too. Yeah. Question over here.
In November 21, my father had a fall and ended up in all sorts of care. And when he was released to go home, he still had not recovered from the 3 concussions that he had had, 1 from the original injury and then 2 in the care facilities. And so we thought we would let him live at home like his plan had been. The company that he had originally picked to be his caregiving company had gone out of business. The company that my older sister, who had a brain tumor, picked was beautiful, but the people that came to the house were, 3 of them didn't even have basic first aid skills. And this is a man that had breathing problems and a heart condition, as well as getting over broken bones and etc. The house was a tri-level house, and none of the entrances and bathrooms were on the same floors. So we thought, well, we did some stuff to help arrange for the house, change a lot of things, the carpets and everything to make it more easy for him and a wheelchair or a walker to get around. But the caregiving company had agreed that it was going to be $5,000 a week for round-the-clock care, and at day 7, it was $19,000.
Wow.
So I ended up losing my kid's 2nd grade year while I went out of state to take care of my dad. And that was really, you don't pay attention to until somebody has that hip injury or the broken ribs and punctured lung problem.
Yeah.
And
No, thank you so much for sharing that. Did you have a question of our panelists? I just say this.
No, that was just carrying on with that cost is really
hard.
Changing the house as well as changing all the other stuff might want to get your houses in order ahead of time.
Yeah, thank you for sharing
You're
that.
blessed if you have a house to sell, though. I mean,
Right.
I went through the Medicaid waiver program. Took me 19 months with my dad to cross state lines. So having assets is wonderful. If you don't, it's a long process. And there are advocates, and there's resources for that as well. Okay, so you're not alone in it. Just know your resources. Do your homework. Care agencies as well.
Thank you, Colette. We have time for maybe 2 more questions. One here.
Mine is just a comment, but
Actually, I don't mean, would you be okay if we just get to the questions? Because we're just going to run
It's very quick, and
Okay.
it will answer something. You talked about the pulsed, and you also talked about the lady that was not married, but she had a partner. The number one place to do that, most people, if they're on Medicare, they meet with their primary care provider once a year. And in the offices, they will usually ask for that. And they ask on the form who they can release information to. And that's the best place to do that. And also at whatever hospital serves you, you should also have a copy of that which you carry with you. So if you travel, no matter where you are, that will still cover it.
Thank you for sharing. Time for one last question.
So it seems like all day, all this morning, we've used Alzheimer's and dementia interchangeably. So in all of the things that you've talked about, is there any differentiation?
All right, I can take that one.
Thank you, Kathy.
Dementia is an umbrella term. It's kind of like saying, I have cancer. Your response might be, what kind of cancer do you have? So dementia is that umbrella term. Alzheimer's is the most common type of dementia, which is why Alzheimer's and dementia often are considered, the same. They're not. There are other types of dementia, such as Lewy body. She says there's 130. I've actually heard there's over 200. So there are all kinds of dementias. Most of them are a lot more obscure. Alzheimer's is just the most common.
Thank you for that.
And one more note about that. If you know someone who's walking around with a diagnosis of dementia, that would be a red flag for me that they have never received a comprehensive cognitive assessment, because we should always try to get an accurate diagnosis and understand the specific cause of a person's dementia. Delirium and untreated depression on the surface can look just like dementia, but those are treatable conditions. And so if somebody has a diagnosis of dementia, I encourage them, go get a comprehensive cognitive assessment, figure out the specific cause of the dementia, and even the different causes of dementia have different treatment protocols and do's and don'ts, even for things like receiving anesthesia, different anesthesia. So it's important to get an accurate diagnosis.
And it's a long journey.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that, Jennifer. That's really important. It's just like, I've got cancer, but need to be a bit more specific. Yeah. Could I ask you, each of you, thank you so much, to make your way out to the speaker table ready for our attendees to come out. Can we give them a round of applause for all the information they shared?